So you're coming to Nebraska and you're wondering, what bugs should I plan for, anticipate, get nervous about, and which ones am I not going to have to worry about? So how about those fire ants I'm allergic to? How about flying palmetto bugs? What about mosquitoes? Love bugs? Scorpions? We'll talk about some of the bugs that you can expect to see while you're here visiting Nebraska, a couple of the ways to deal with them, and some of the bugs that you will not have to worry about. And that's what I'm going to give you answers for today. So you're coming to Nebraska and you're wondering to yourself, what bugs am I gonna have to plan for, and which ones do I get to not worry about anymore? I'm glad to, well, maybe not glad to, but I'll be sharing some of my maybe horror stories from my 30 plus moves all over the United States, dealing with all different kinds of bugs. Thankfully that you won't have to deal with here, and maybe one or two that you might have to. Okay, Kristi Wampler coming to you today from Nebraska Realty with Team Locale here in Omaha, Nebraska. And I would not say I'm excited to come to you with this topic, but I'm excited to share my experience and maybe some of the ways that you can avoid them, because if you know, in another life, entomology would never be one of my careers. So that's where I'm at. I am not a bug fan. And some of my kids are not too. I've got 7 different bugs that you probably will hear or see if you're here, especially in the summer months. We're talking about maybe May through like mid-October or so. And then 5 that I've experienced in other parts of the country that you will not be seeing. Okay, bug number 1. Boxelder bugs, also known as stink bugs. These are like a flying beetle that I don't even know. They're kind of brown. You can probably see like in the picture here. They do stink when you squish them. So as much as you're able to just shoo them outside, since they fly, it can be kind of alarming. You know, it startled the kids. Oh my gosh, it's in the car. What? Oh, pull over. Oh my gosh. Or sometimes we've had them squeak themselves in between like the screen and the side of the window. And so every once in a blue moon, I think we've had maybe like 2 sneak in, and maybe one of those was probably because one of the kids left the back screen door open. Thank you. Box elder bugs or stink bugs kind of are attracted more to like lighter colors. So if you have whichever is the sunnier side of your house, you'll probably see them there most often. These are harmless. They just stink. They're annoying. They're weird looking. They make me itch. And so I am not a fan. Bug number 2, June bugs. Okay, called June bugs because it's round about June. Sometimes they come a little bit earlier, just all depends on the weather. And this is another beetle. They're brown. They're about maybe like, I don't know, maybe like an inch when they're like full sized. And these also fly. Not a fan of that. Harmless, but I don't like flying things. I don't like flying things. And they're attracted to light. So, you know, that's something else to be aware of. So usually they're out and about in the evening. You'll see them and they'll be flying towards things that are light colored. Hence why I choose to wear darker colors if I have to be out in the later hours. They're pretty ridiculous. Like I said, they don't do anything and they're not too smart. So they run into a lot of things. They will run into you. I remember one summer, this was actually in Iowa, and there were like so many of them. And I'm thankful that that is not the problem here, but this was like ridiculous. Like they were landing on everybody and I like saw them in people's hair and I'm already getting itchy. Ugh. And I think I had one at one point like that had worked its way under the back of my t-shirt. But yes, I've heard lots of horror stories. And I know that like my dad talked about when he was a kid, he used to like, they would catch them and like tie them together with like a tiny piece of thread and they would like run into each other. I don't know. Guys, boys, bugs. No, thank you. Okay, bug number 3, crickets. Okay, I don't mind crickets. They're a bug. They hop. Disney has popularized them with movies such as Mulan. But there's a lot of them. So that's why I thought those were a good one to mention. There are a lot of them. I mean, in the evening, and of course, again, summertime, they start making all their noise in like June-ish. They are loud, so loud. And I kind of like it. It's like a peaceful, like sleeping noise, but you will hear them. It's unavoidable. And then when I'm walking through my grass, especially, I mean, it could be like any time of day, but especially like in the afternoon, walking through the grass, and they like jump out in like piles, like on, well, maybe not piles, but like, you know, if I'm walking through, I will see like 10, 15 crickets just hop onto the driveway or onto the sidewalk or whatever, walking through the grass. So they're there. You don't see them very often unless you're walking through the grass, but you definitely will hear them very often. Number 4, another one that you will hear very often, and this is moving more into maybe July-ish time frame, is the cicada. Now these bugs, another harmless bug, unless you hate bugs. Because they're terrifying. Like, they're like giant, like nuclear looking flies. I mean, like this, like big, and they make lots of terrible noises that are like, we're coming for you, duck, you know, look out. They like to hang out in trees. They also molt, and so sometimes you'll come across like just like the outside of one, which look just like it, except it's like clear, so it's really gross. I mean, the only perk about that is that there's not actually a moving bug inside of it anymore. So, yeah, you might see that, or your kids might say, oh, look what I found, and bring it to you, and that's a whole different story. Okay, number 5, a bug that you will see but not hear, lightning bugs, and these are ones that I actually kind of like. You know, my kids are like, oh, roly-polies, roly-polies. Those kind of gross me out, but whatever. They have fun with them. Go have fun in the backyard, not in the house. So fireflies, probably also like late June, early July. It's like a pretty short window, like only a couple weeks it feels like. And they just kind of show up everywhere. And I always remember it too because it's kind of like right around 4th of July time that you see them a lot. So it's kind of like God's little fireworks in the grass. So it's a lot of fun to get the kids excited about seeing them, and sometimes we'll, you know, catch some of them, or they'll just have fun. We'll sit on the swing in the back and watch them in the backyard, but I enjoy those. I don't want them on me. No, thank you. But it's fun to watch them. Okay, bug number 6, Japanese beetles. All right, now these are a pest. They do fly. They're like, you've probably seen them before. I feel like they're in most places, but just maybe not as many unless you're like in New York City. But they're like shiny green, and they're probably, I don't know, maybe like an inch. They're about the same size as a June bug. And they, if you're planning on having a vegetable garden, so there are remedies aplenty to try and address that. Apparently they like lay eggs in the ground, and then they like hatch in the spring. And so whatever you can do to like curb that through the winter, this way they don't come back and attack your plants. But some years are worse than others. You'll hear people talking about it. Or if you're on the Nextdoor app, very much at all, people will talk about just dealing with how many different, Japanese beetles are in their garden and eating up the tomatoes and all the different things. So, pretty annoying. They're like, I don't know, maybe it's fun that they're shiny green, but they're still gross. And last but not least, number 7, not to be confused with the Japanese beetle, the Asian beetle. Okay, also not to be confused with the ladybug. Okay, I did not know that this was a thing until I moved to the Midwest, but they look pretty much just like ladybugs, except if you've ever seen an actual ladybug, it is like a really bright red with the black dots on it. Asian beetles are like kind of more of like an orangey red, and they bite, they stink, they're attracted to like other smushed ones, they're attracted to like light colored surfaces. When I was in grad school, I lived on campus, And the side of the building that I was on was a light colored wall. And then we had like window unit air conditioners. And so there was no keeping these little things out because they're very small. And like they do actually like get to be smaller than ladybugs sometimes, you know, I guess when they're like younger. Oh, here I go, itching again. And so they would come in like in ridiculous numbers until at one point I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like one of the other grads was keeping a little hand vacuum. And fun story, that other grad is now my husband, the bug rescuer. Anyhow, he had a little hand vac and he would vacuum up the bugs from the ceiling, from the wall, from the floor. They were everywhere. And if you left and then you came back in like a half an hour, it was like you didn't even do anything. And so it was ridiculous. The apartment that I was in, I actually had to buy, and this was like at the end of summer, and so it was still hot. So I was like, I would rather deal with the heat than deal with this bug situation. And so I bought the plastic, you know, like the plastic wrap that you buy in winter to keep the breezes out if you have like not very well insulated windows. And I put the whole window covered in like the sheet plastic and with the, you know, hair dryer and like made it all flat and stuff like that. And I basically had like the equivalent of an ant farm, but with Asian beetles in my window, in my room. There were hundreds of them. Hundreds of them. Thankfully, that was in Minnesota. We are in Nebraska. So you will not see them nearly in quite the number of what I've experienced them. But it was horrific. Anyway, needless to say, as I mentioned, they do bite if they're on you for long enough, but no thank you. And I do believe that they're also a plant pest. So, but don't quote me on that one. Okay, and now the fun part, the 5 that you won't see. Cockroaches. Unless you're like not putting things away in your garden and, you know, lifting up rocks or maybe like, I don't know, maybe leaving kid toys in like wet locations and then flipping them over, you're not going to see any type of roach. And the ones that you do see don't fly like the palmetto bugs in Florida. No, thank you. Other horror stories there. Like while I'm sleeping, like thank God I sleep with a sheet on the side of my face because like the bug, it like flew and landed on top of the sheet on my ear. I cannot even imagine like if I hadn't had that there. I don't know, I just might have died of a heart attack and we wouldn't be making this video right now. Other things you will not see, fire ants, lived in North Carolina. These were miserable, especially when I'm allergic to them. So a fire ant bite was not just a fire ant bite. Get one on my toe, looks like Vienna sausage. Get one on like my, I don't know, pick a spot. On my wrist, finger, elbow, and that joint is not moving for like a solid 3 or 4 days. No thank you, no fire ants. No love bugs. Another fun one in Florida. Where do these even come from? These are like, they're kind of like cousins of lightning bugs, but they're not fun. They're just gross and they end up all over the front of your car. We don't have those here, so get excited. And no scorpions. This wasn't in the US, but, and I know you're thinking like, it's not a bug, it's an arachnid. It doesn't matter to me. It has lots of little legs and it crawls, and P.S., it can kill you. So we don't have any of those here, but down south, Mexico, honeymoon hotel room, like one crawled into the bathroom in the middle of the night. Like I about died. Last, but quite possibly my favorite, is that there are so many fewer mosquitoes here than in Minnesota. Minnesota, I could not like go out of doors in warm weather because they're everywhere. In case you didn't know, it's like the running joke that the mosquito is the state bird of Minnesota. So that's saying something. But yes, I was more than delighted to find when we moved here that there are not nearly as many. Yes, they're out and maybe some seasons you might see them more than others, but they are few and far in between. So I am thankful for that, especially because I'm also allergic to those. But if you haven't seen them yet, those little like, it's like a bug, like when you get a mosquito bite and it like sucks the mosquito bite out, that's like a real thing. And we bought them and you have to try them. It's important to know, good to know for if you're coming here, trying to figure out what to avoid, what things you have to worry about or maybe not worry about so much. And if it was helpful for me, I thought somebody else out there would appreciate it. Make sure to check out this video of my top 10 pros and cons of living in Omaha.